The High Republic, aka formerly known as, may still be known as Project Luminous. Who knows? But we're going to talk about it. And that means you are listening or watching the Resistance broadcast, everybody. Welcome back. I'm John. How are you? Thanks so much for joining us today. Yes, it's our discussion episode. Obviously, we have other stuff that we do in said episode, but we're going to be talking about the High Republic and the new series of books and comics coming out, taking place a longer time ago in a galaxy far, far away. With me, as always, James and Lacey. Guys, can you believe this has nothing to do with Star Wars. It's March 5th today. Like, what happened to winter? Like, I live in Connecticut. Lacey, we live in Connecticut. It snowed, once this year? I can't believe it's March already. That means...
You know why?
Why?
Because I bought a snowblower this year.
And because of that, the weather changed and we didn't get winter.
Yep. We're going to get so much snow this year. I'm going to buy a snowblower. And I went to Lowe's and bought a snowblower. And we've used it once for like half an inch of snow just because we were like, well, we have this. We're going to use it.
You got to use it. Yeah.
And then it did nothing.
So, James, the one with the will of the Force, what are we doing this week? What's going on?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
Well, it's the will of the Force.
Oh! 3 weeks in a row, will of the Force.
Yep.
Can't even say it's back, baby. It's just been
Been here.
Yeah.
Still here, baby. Still kicking. All right. Well, Will of the Force this week. We have 2 Patreon questions, and we're going to kick it off right away with Kyle Baker. Major Kyle Baker wants to know, will we hear any mention of the prophecy of the Chosen One in the High Republic content that's coming out? So, John, I'm going to start with you on this one. The Chosen One, are we going to hear about him in the High Republic era?
That's tough because I'm trying to think of where else it's been talked about aside from the movies. Because, it's pretty clear that there's been a long time of the Jedi, serving justice and protecting peace and prosperity in the galaxy well before the High Republic. So it's if they want to pull the trigger on it and they want to do, some sense of connectivity. What can we talk about in the High Republic that connects us to the other stuff that would make sense? So maybe they do that. You know what? Maybe one of these stories is about that, about uncovering this prophecy. So I'm going to say yes. Why not?
Lacey, what do you think?
I think that they will talk about it because in the Skywalker saga, obviously they talk about the Chosen One and the prophecy and Anakin and then Luke and then there's another. I think they need the starting point that they don't want to be exactly what tied to the Skywalker saga because they want to explore new eras. But I think by little things like this, like discovering prophecies, it's a way to tie it back. So you're like, yes, this makes sense. Outside of obviously having lightsabers and it being Star Wars. But I think that's a small way they could, not really small, but it's just a way they can tie the stories together without being too over the top. Like, this is the Skywalker saga point 1.0.
Yeah. I also do think they will talk about it.
3 for 3.
There's really, I feel like there's only 2 ways to go about this. Either the prophecy was created or prophesized on, whatever, long before, and it has yet to come to fruition because Anakin is the chosen one, right? Or some people might say Luke or whatever, but either way, it definitely has not happened at the High Republic era. So you got to think during this era, the prophecy of the chosen one is still out there, and they could potentially say, do you think it's Jimmy? Right. Do you think he's the chosen one?
Jimmy.
So it's still Jimmy. Yeah, I don't know. Just Sheila or whatever.
Sheila.
But whoever that person is over there, the other option is we don't know how far back it was created. So the High Republic could be where they say, oh, well, this was all rough and this was terrible, but don't worry, I'm prophesizing now that there will be a chosen one who will bring balance to the Force. It could be the time where it was actually first created. So either way, I think it's a win. I doubt that it was the prophecy of the chosen one was like 100 years ago, you know?
Yeah, right.
That seems like, you know, like 10 years ago, somebody said the prophet will come, the chosen one, you know, it's like, I don't know, whatever. All right, 3 for 3 on that one. The next question is, will a 4th Disney Plus live action Star Wars series be announced by the end of 2020? So less than a year. We only got till December. Do you think that they're going to announce a 4th live action show, Lacey?
Yes, I think they will. I think a big focus at Star Wars Celebration this year is going to be TV. And I think it's going to be Solo.
I was laughing because it's like, we're putting our focus here.
I think
what we talked about.
I honestly think their focus is going to be TV.
Mm-hmm. And you think it's going to be Solo?
Yep.
Don't do this stuff to me.
John, will it be Solo? Just change the question altogether.
I try not to even think about that. Like, I honestly, my brain tried to think about that. It won't ever happen. But even though it's like the thing I've never wanted more in Star Wars for some reason. Do I think a series will be announced? I think so. And, you know, it stems back to that Patreon chat we had about that bonus question about, you know, what's going on with the movie productions and stuff like that. Like, I think they're really having a rough time figuring out how to make Star Wars movies beyond connectivity to the Skywalkers. And they have all these creators that are allegedly developing stuff, and the only one confirmed is Rian Johnson, and this has been over 2 years now. It's been since fall of 2017 Rian Johnson's stuff was announced, and we don't know what's going on. So there's something wrong with that, and I think because of that reason, they're going to have these ideas for these series that aren't as high leverage as a theatrical film, so I think they got to do something. So I think we will hear at least an announcement. Whether that 4th series happens, I don't know, because, you know, Cassian seems to be on some thin ice. But I agree with Lacey. I think they will announce a 4th series before the end of this year.
Yep, I am in that boat as well. And actually,
what is going on today?
I don't know. Yeah, I went and I looked. The Mandalorian was officially announced, or at least the title was announced, October 3rd, 2018. And then a month later after that, they announced Cassian Andor in November 8th, 2018. And then we didn't hear an official announcement for another Star Wars property, or Disney Plus show, I should say, live action, until August 23rd, 2019. So almost a year later. But if they went all the way till August 23rd of 2020, we're still well in the timeline of this Will of the Force question, and that would be the longest span they've ever gone to not announce another TV show. So,
and it's Celebration.
Yeah, exactly. And 2020 is, I mean, we have a full year, and we haven't got one since last August. Right?
Lacey,
So
they're not announcing anything at Celebration.
Yeah, although, you know what was funny? I thought I'd bring this up. Bob Iger announced Cassian Andor on the call, the earnings call.
Did he?
Yeah, I looked that up and I was like, "Whoa!" And then I watched like the Star Wars show, like Special Alert, and they were like, "Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, announced yesterday that blah 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 blah." It was like,
it was definitely an oops, don't announce this, and then he did, and they were like, "We got to act like we did this on purpose."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Can I say something?
No, you can't.
All right. Now no one's not going to know it. No one's going to know it.
Just go.
What do you got to say?
I'm going to miss that guy.
You had your chance, John. He was right there.
Lacey, he's still going to be around for the next 2 years.
We could have had it all.
But there's no movies for 2 years. How are you going to run into him?
I will.
I'm going to miss that bird. Nobody gets that joke. All right. Another patron question from Commander Noah. Our Commander Noah wants to know, will this kind how to say this? Will this kind of creative team effort that is being used with Project Luminous be used as an approach in creating a more cohesive set of films in the future? John, this one's right back at you. What do you think?
I'm going to say no to answer this question because I think the creation of a cohesive story with these books and comics is a different animal from filmmaking because there's so much more involved in terms of making these films and so many variables that can come into play. I mean, look at what happened with Carrie Fisher dying and they had to change that whole thing. There's just way less room for error when you're putting books together than you are movies. So I'm having a hard time connecting this. So I'm going to say no to that. But having said that, I think without question, your next Star Wars saga, film-wise, is going to have a map and a plan and a blueprint in place because of the back and forth and the chaos of the sequel trilogy, which I still love very much. But I think mainly because of that situation, they're learning from that and they're going to put more of a map together. Because let's not forget, the original trilogy didn't have a plan either. And people forget that. Like, they didn't have Leia being Luke's sister till Return of the Jedi. So, but I think they are going to, use... I've been bringing up Marvel a lot, and I used to hate that. But what they were able to do is insane, how they connect a lot of stuff. So I think Star Wars, with one saga of 3 films or whatever they're going to end up doing, they can pull that off. And I think that's what they're going to do.
I think you just finally realized how good of a comparison it is. Lacey, do you think that they're going to use the Project Luminous model or idea concept for a future filmmaking?
So, in my real life, I'm a project manager, and the more people you get involved in a project, the more difficult it is. And it's great when you're writing on a gigantic dry erase board and coming up with ideas like dinosaurs, but it's terrible when you put that plan into place of what the actual execution is. And like John said, I think writing a book is very different from making a movie or making a TV show. And there's so many more things that are involved in it that I don't think you can use this like collaborative 8-people team to come up with a movie. Now, people at home are probably saying, but Lacey, what about the story group? They're there to like check canon stuff and throw names at items that don't exist and come up and make sure that it's canon. I don't think they're creating one cohesive story together. So no, I don't think they'll ever use this. And like John said, I think if they were going to bring a team in, it would be for like an overall, this is where the story's going. I don't think they would get into like the nitty gritty, I guess. So no, they will not.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't really know if I feel like we're all on the same page, but I don't know if we're even are we all saying no, then they won't do this?
Right.
In a weird way, yeah.
That's what I'm saying is like, it's kind of a weird answer. I think, for Commando Knower to get his answer, you can hear what we're trying to say. I don't know necessarily that they're going to bring in a group of people and then say, here it is, JJ, here's the plan. If anything, it would be JJ and then him telling them, here's the plan, and them more... which is what we kind of thought it was originally going to be. It was, the story group. Yeah, they're not coming up with the stories, but they're going to hear what JJ has to say and then like make it all work together or whatever. And it's kind of just like, it wasn't that. And I think they need to, they recognize that they need that cohesive story. 'Cause I've said this before on the pod, if they, you like 7, you hate 8, you like 8, you hate 9. What it doesn't matter. I think the one thing that all fans agree with was it probably all would have been a little bit better if they just had an overarching story, right?
Right. They wrote them all at the same time. Yeah.
It's like we all just kind of, just agree that it's like, you probably just had it. We don't really like the hand it off to the next person model. So the future of the movies is exactly what John said. There's no doubt about it. They're going to know where they're going multiple films into it. Yeah. Last question though, before we move on to the bigger discussion, or actually I should say the Patreon Podrace that comes next. Will there be more than or less than or exactly 3 Star Wars theatrical films released from now and including the year 2030? So from 2020 to 2030, do you think there will be more, less, or exactly 3 films, theatrical films? And Lacey, you're starting this one off.
From now to 2030, so in the next decade.
And including
22, 24, 26, and then nothing till 3031. Like, what do you think?
I think they're going to create exactly 3 films.
Okay.
No, I lied. They're going to create exactly 4 films.
Oh. So where's your math? Let's hear it.
A series and then 1 standalone.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So the answer to the question would be more.
More
John,
than 3.
More than 3. All right, John, what do you think? 3? If you say 4?
No, I was holding up 4 fingers.
I don't think me assuming that was said.
No,
that
I was visual aiding Lacey's answer.
Okay, gotcha.
Patreon joke about holding up fingers. I think. See, Lacey's got me thinking 4. I was gonna say 3 because
You can't say 4 because I've said 4.
I can say whatever I want. Though. That's what I do.
As creator of Make Solo 2 Happen.
John, quit digging your grave.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time here. I'm really having a hard time. James, do you have can you come back to me? Do you have a concrete shot at this one?
Yep. Yeah. I think that this kind of goes back to what we were talking about on one of our Patreon videos. But what do you think the difference of the new CEO coming in? What are one of the changes? I think if anything, there's going to be a big shakeup at Lucasfilm as far as him making it happen or Kathleen Kennedy getting it together or bringing in someone else. And I think that whatever happens, whoever they bring in, they get it going. They get it going, and we're going to get the trilogy, and they're going to do that, and then they're going to be back on the 1 film a year route. And I think that, I don't know exact dates. I assume, what's the one that we're looking at, 2024? Is that the one? Or 2023?
The only date...
22.
Yeah, that's the only date. The other dates are washed.
So, but I think that's still likely to happen. 22, 24, 26. And then I think 27, 28, 29, 30. I think they're going to start figuring it out, and they're going to be they're going to find their stride. That's the best way to put it, I think.
All right. So I'm going to say, so you said more. You're saying more.
We both said more. Yep.
Yeah.
3 is so little.
You guys sold me. I was going to say 3 because there's nothing going on right now. And I just have so many doubts about it. But I think you're right, because I think there will be a changing of the guard. My only thought is, if they don't announce something concrete about this 2022 movie by the end of this year or early next year, a year from now, then it makes me wonder, are they making the Kenobi movie or show a movie, and that's going to take the 2022 slot to give them more time to, not backtrack and delete that timeline off of their upcoming movies. And then say they did that, then they would still have a new trilogy to make, which would give you 4. So, and then I still think Rey's coming back, in 10 years. I think in 2030 you're going to get Rey back, with the new movie. So I'm gonna say 5. So I'm going over now. I'm all over the map. But you guys sold me on over, and I'm going one more because I just thought about Rey coming back too. So you're gonna have maybe the 2022 film as your Kevin Feige, help us, Kevin. You're going to get your trilogy, whether that's Rian Johnson or your next, this is a different saga, whether they go to match up to the High Republic, like Benioff and Weiss type of situation was going to be. And then Rey comes back to start her new trilogy in the 2030s. So I'm going over 2. We got a lot of cohesion here in this Will of the Force.
Yeah. All right. But that being said, the Will of the Force is over for this week. Maybe not. It'll be back next week. Potentially One with the Force. I don't know. We'll see. See what Baze is up to. Lacey, I'm going to send it to you for the Patreon Podrace.
All right, guys, time for the Patreon Podrace. So, how this works is there are some ways that you can support us and join the resistance, and that's by liking this video, commenting, subscribing, sharing us with your friends and family that like Star Wars, following us on Twitter at RBATSWNN, or you can go even further if that's not enough for you and you really want to get into the resistance base. You can join us at patreon.com/resistance broadcast. We have several different ranks that you can join, and it's a really great positive community that you could be a part of. So this segment is for our generals, which is our top ranking tier, and they get to be a part of the show. So we ask them a question and they give their 60 seconds and then we respond to it. So this week, we have General Neil Lowry from the UK.
Neil.
He is our general of positivity. He's honestly one of the nicest, kindest, most positive people in fandom. And we asked him, what did he think about the Project Luminous announcement and details? So Neil, take it away.
Hello, John, Lacey and James. What do I think about Project Luminous? It sounds an intriguing idea. I'll certainly be getting some of the books. I'm just wondering how it will translate into a more general audience. Most Star Wars fans will be very interested in it, but wondering how just the general average Joe will just be interested in a series of books and comics, unless down the line they're going to translate it into a Disney Plus series or a movie. I'm just a bit confused about how they're going to take Star Wars forward into the wider stream. It seems this sort of a niche, sort of a market for it. I love your thoughts on it. Certainly want Star Wars to continue healthily and keep going. And I think this is a great idea, but I just wondered if they're just taking a slightly more different approach to it.
Neil, great job. I love how you say luminous. It's like luminous. It sounds like so much better than when I say it. John, what do you think?
Neil has been a little spicy last couple of pod races. And I like it, Neil. I like it. Yeah, you've listened to our podcast all the time, every week, and you've been a faithful supporter of ours, and I can't thank you enough for that, obviously. But being that you get the Patreon content, and you know my points of view on this type of thing. You're right about the concerns about the general audience being reached on this, and how I know that is like I step outside of the bubble a lot. For my mental sanity, and also just because I like to talk to other people about what they think. My brother had messaged me saying, like, the day before the event, he's like, "What's this Star Wars announcement?" I'm like, "There's a new series of books and comics taking place before the prequels," and he just writes back, "Lame." So there's a lot of fans who are just like, "All right, Mando movies, live action, that's like a big chunk of your Star Wars fans that bring the bread to the table, so to speak." So you're right, Neil. I think you have a good point there. Now, what they do with it, I'm not sure. I think I have some things I have to say about that, which we're going to do in our next segment. But great take, honestly. And again, like Lacey said, you're the general positivity. You're very generous with your shout outs and your tags. And I don't know if you have lists or spreadsheets, how you keep up with all these people you're tagging, but more fans should be like you, man. And thank you so much for all your support. And I hope you're feeling better. I know you were not doing so well the past couple of weeks, and you had tweeted about that. So hope you're back on your feet. And thanks,
James.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the concern, I don't know that it was so much like, I don't think this is going to reach the biggest thing. It was, I hope That's the positive Neil. I'm curious as to how it's going to reach the bigger fan base. And I think that anybody who's positive about Project Luminous realistically has that question as well. So it's a good question, and it really perfectly leads us into the discussion. Thanks for the take, Neil. I think you're dead on. Yeah.
Neil, you did such a great job. I completely agree with you. I think there's a lot of questions around what does this mean for Star Wars. Leading into The Rise of Skywalker, we got pummeled with marketing about how this is the end of an era. This is the end of the saga. This is the end. Oh my God, it's over. This is the final battle, etc. So this announcement, I think, hyped us up more than we thought it would, because we were like, okay, well, what's next? And to find out that when you're a fan of all the movies, that this is just books and comics, there's a little bit of a, what about me? Like, I like going to the movies to see Star Wars. I like watching it on TV. So yeah, I mean, that's a concern that we all have, and it goes into our discussion that we're about to have in like 2 seconds. But you did a great job. And as always, thank you for staying positive, even when you have concerns, or that you're not sure of something, or hey, you just don't agree. You always do it in the best way. So thanks for that. And now we're going to go to John for the discussione. John?
Discussione?
Yeah. You're welcome.
Hey guys, it's our discussione.
No, it's time for our discussion.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
You do It's Time. I don't do It's Time.
I thought you were making fun of me. I said that you missed it, if that's what you were making fun of me for.
Oh.
The way you said it sounded like you were mimicking.
And I missed
I
that
think we're
too.
running out of time.
You're running out of time. All right, guys.
No, you're
Our
running out of time.
Speaking of time, our discussion is taking us back in time. What impact will the High Republic have on the immediate future of Star Wars? So we got Project Luminous, is now officially called the High Republic Era, which will be made up of books and comics interwoven, telling stories that take place in the High Republic era, which takes place 230 plus years before the Battle of Yavin. BBY for all of you nerds out there. Patrick Covey, I'm looking at you, buddy. As of now, Disney has said there are no plans to create TV shows or films coinciding with the era. But like I said, as of now. So let's talk about the impact this project will have on the immediate future of the franchise. Obviously, we're going to be doing a bit of speculating, wondering where it will go. James, you had brought up on Monday, they've been pretty clear this is called a phase 1 of however many. We're not sure. But I'll just kick things off here by saying, I'm a little shocked. Again, I touched on this on Monday, that they held such a grand-sized event for books and comics, where they brought media in, not us, but they brought other media in, in LA at Disney, and Kathleen Kennedy's not there. Just really weird vibes on this. Something was a little strange about that. But like general audience speaking, kind of like what Neil touched on a little bit. I talked to my brothers, and brothers. I have one brother. I talked to my brother, talked to my friends, and the people who create these billion-dollar box office draws for these movies, they are not anywhere close to the pulse of this thing. I mean, they don't even know really much about like the Clone Wars and like big successful animated shows that Star Wars does. So it depends on where they go with other media about this High Republic era. If they stay in just literature, I don't think it has that big of an impact. And I think it may stay isolated in its bubble. So it really depends on where they take it with a phase 2, or how big they stretch the timeline out, if they decide to make shows, animated shows, and that sort of thing from it. So that's where my starting place is. James, I'm gonna kick it over to you, since you're the biggest book person out of us here. What you're probably the most excited about it. So what do you got?
Honestly, I feel like a lot of Star Wars fans are looking at this like negatively, and to me personally, I look at this whole thing and I'm like, could not have done better at anything. I don't think there was this big roll the red carpet out for this announcement. I think they just brought some people to this like hotel and had a couple media there. I think they were more or less like doing it for the authors and the people that were working together. They're like, hey, you guys have been working on this for many years, and we're not just going to make it a blog post. We know you've been working hard at creating this cross-platform thing, and we're going to throw you this little thing. It's nothing huge, and the Star Wars, social media accounts and stuff that are covering this and saying this is the future of Star Wars and all this. It's like, I think that is the fault of the fans, like putting too much into this. I don't think we were hit over the head with it. I think we were given very little information. I think some of the stuff that we're even like speculating on was like leaked stuff, like, oh, it's going to be about this and all this. And it's like, that's not Lucasfilm. They're not in control of that. As far as the viral campaign of this whole thing, it's just like some authors occasionally talking about how they worked on the Luminous thing. I don't think that's Lucasfilm saying we're bringing out Kathleen Kennedy. And I like the way they've rolled this out. And I think it's really smart of them to say what we're wanting to do for ourselves as the creators of this thing is create a new world that could maybe down the line potentially be something really cool. But we want to build within this sandbox. And I don't think they're promising anything either. So I like exactly what they're doing. And I feel like if you were in charge of the literature of Star Wars, like this is a big deal. But I don't think they're like overhyping it. I think they're being very real about what it is. Like, oh, we're very excited about all the things that we're doing. But we don't want to make it seem like it's a new movie announcement or something, I love the rollout of this. I think it's great.
All right. Am I just going then?
You're next.
Because you gave James a question, so I was waiting. I thought you might give me a question, but that's okay.
I usually start.
I think I was kind of setting you up,
and then we just
All right.
Yeah.
So I disagree with you. I think they hyped this up like big time for like over a year. Like everything was like just text on a black image that's like coming soon, coming this date, coming in January. No, just kidding. It's coming in February. I think they did hype it up for this event. It was a small event, but they had it on the Disney lot. They had food there. They had like draped lighting and all these things. And I think they did make it a big deal. And my disappointment actually isn't necessarily that it wasn't a bigger announcement than what they gave us, because I think they're kind of leading into what could come for movies and TVs eventually, maybe. My disappointment more than anything was that they didn't live stream it. Like, I kind of wish they live streamed it.
I think that points to them not making it a big deal. I think that's in my camp. They didn't even bother to live stream it. It was a private event.
I mean, I guess, but they still invited like 30 press people that were live tweeting the whole thing the whole time. I think that comes into less not making it a big deal. And from my own experience of events, more of like a logistics, like, okay, well, if we wanted to live stream this, what would we need to live stream it? And it's like this whole thing. Like, I think that is more of the argument, less that they wouldn't want to do it. But away from that stuff, because it doesn't matter if I thought it was too hyped or not. Whatever. I'm very interested in actually the video / trailer that they showed during the event and then after the fact, which had Pablo in it, which had Story Group in it, which showed their process, which is very interesting that they've been working on this for so long, and they went to Skywalker Ranch and all this stuff. And then they worked with people like Doug Chang for concept art of what these characters look like. So I think the positive thing coming out of this for me was that this is a whole new era, a whole new bunch of characters that we can connect with, new adventures, new stories to tell that's not in the Skywalker saga, which we've been saying since I've been on the podcast for 2 years now, like, what's going to happen next? This is it. This is what's happening. And it's going back in time, but it's like so refreshing to know that there's no personal connections yet with these characters, so no one's going in with this isn't my Star Wars, because it's not anybody's Star Wars right now.
Right. Yeah.
Which is really exciting to me. I am not the biggest comics and books fan. I've read a lot of the books, and especially the novelizations from the movies. Those tend to be my favorites because those are the characters that I've known basically my whole life. But I'm excited at the aspect that I don't know what's coming. But it also makes me kind of nervous because I'm like, where could this go? But when they described it as, Jedi Knights of the Round Table and Space Vikings and the Wild West and the Outer Rim, we got that kind of feel from The Mandalorian, and I absolutely adore The Mandalorian. And that's with stuff that we kind of already know. So I can only imagine what we're going to get. And like I said on Monday, obviously something bad could happen during this time period that sets off the story or sets the story in motion. But the idea that the Jedi are kind of like in their heyday is very cool to me, because we've only seen kind of the other end of that timeline.
The Palpatine manipulated, yeah.
Yeah, and them falling apart, and then all of them dying, and then there's like 3 left, and that kind of thing. Like, I can't wait to see all these different types of Jedi and see what they can do, because we're going to get new Force powers. We have to.
How do you feel about the Wookiee Jedi?
I think it's cool. It's what I heard.
No problems.
It's like everybody gets their favorite. It's like Spice Girls.
I don't like it. It's like it's like when you play sports as a kid and everybody gets the trophy because they participated. They're like, all right, Wookiee, you get to be a Jedi too.
Well, I think they're saying that maybe the Force was more powerful at this time period or something.
No, I know. It's going to be weird seeing well, I guess we might not see it. It'll just be in pages seeing a Wookiee.
Right.
Swinging a lightsaber around. But, no, I mean, those are good points. I lean more towards you, Lacey, in terms of they may have overshot in terms of what the deal is with this. But and this is kind of speculation. But before I get to that point, someone filmed a video, and I apologize which media account did it, of the person introducing everything that night. It was a woman from Disney Lucasfilm Press, and she said some things that I don't even know that Michael Siglane, like the head of Disney Press and Disney Lucasfilm Press. It's so hard to say that name now. I don't know if he would believe this if you hooked him up to a lie detector test. So she said, what carried Star Wars from 1983 to 1999? The books. And she said, and some of the people in the crowd were like, did it? She's like, and I don't know how big the room was, but like when a room's not mic'd, but even though people laugh, it's weird because it doesn't get picked up on audio. Mm-hmm. And then she said, from 2005 to 2015, what carried Star Wars? The books and comics. It's like, Clone Wars? Yeah. So that's a weird statement to me. It's almost like they're trying to convince people of its bigger impact in the history of Star Wars that it didn't really have. Especially when you consider George Lucas never considered those books his canon. They're very good. I know a lot of people like them. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the facts. George Lucas did not consider those books canon. They were licensed. They're wonderful, and that's fine. But to come out now and say that they were this entrenched part of carrying the legacy. Star Wars was over in 1983. That's why books were there was the only thing. Books and toys. So I think that's a little bit of misleading your audience and insulting their intelligence in a bit to say that. I know some people may disagree with that. James may disagree with that. I'm not sure. My bigger point here, and this is like speculation nation here, Benioff and Weiss came out and said their movies were going to take place a few hundred years before the Skywalkers and the prequels. They were announced to be making those films in the beginning of 2018. This project was started working on in 2018. I have a feeling that was supposed to be a bigger connectivity there between this project and what those guys were working on, which would make a lot more sense that they were hyping that thing, because while they were starting to hype and promote Project Luminous, those guys were still on board making those movies. And the fact that they came out and confirmed that what they were going to be doing for their series of films, not even just a trilogy, was indeed going to be about the Jedi in like a medieval sense, hundreds of years before the Skywalkers, matches exactly what this is. So if they were
Did
going
they
to
say
do that,
hundreds, or did they say the origins of the Jedi?
I may be misspeaking, but they did clearly make it sound like it was well before the Skywalkers. My report on it from the guy my source that I talked to said hundreds of years before the prequels.
Sure.
If that was in place in 2018 and they were indeed developing that, which is confirmed, and this started developing in 2018, I don't see how they would have ran two projects that didn't cross paths in either way. So I'm beginning to think that once those guys jettisoned that, this thing was so well into motion already, because it takes a long time. I work in publishing to develop books, write books, publish books, the whole deal, interweave these stories with the comics and all that stuff. This might have been so well on its way that they're like, look, I know those guys are out. We can't shut this down now. So it almost makes me think that maybe they did overshoot their target, but because of that overlaying cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's fair. I definitely disagree with the overshoot your target thing. They're not doing like GMA ads, but
No, that's fair.
But do you guys want to talk about the just what it is? Like, as far as, do we feel like we're vibing the medieval thing?
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about this announcement to me was them saying that the Republic as it stands right now, and they also say the height of the Jedi, and I don't think that means bigger than what we saw in the prequels. I think that means they're at their height that they've ever been. Like state of the art, but that's clearly less than where they are 200, 300 years later, or whatever, 230 years later. I think that the best thing they could have said is that the Republic is in a niche of the galaxy. They are not the larger galaxy at hand. And I have always pictured that the Republic that stood for over 1,000 years, or I think it was exactly 1,000 years, has always been the whole galaxy. Maybe not the unknown regions or whatever. Yeah, exactly. But that's like a small portion of the galaxy. The galaxy at large has been the Republic. And this is new information. They're only a part of it. They're, let's say, 20%. Now that 20% has to step into the 80%, and they're the minority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point to bring up. And now the question being, are we, how many Jedi are we focusing on with these stories? I mean, is it going to be a situation where Charles Soule, because Lacey, you were talking about you're interested in Charles Soule's book, because it is like, we're going to get a glimpse of the good times, and then like Armageddon, the meteor is going to hit through Manhattan and all chaos is going to ensue or whatever from these Viking guys. Are we going to focus on 12 Jedi around this round table, or is it going to be like, now we're going to go to this planet and these Jedi, the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, the Jedi of Kashyyyk have their own round table, and then the Jedi, it's going to be like the Senate, but it's the Jedi. Like, I don't know the scope of what the Jedi are going to be like. I can't put my finger on that. Lacey, do you have any thoughts on this?
So I don't mean to go off tangent, like on a tangent, but like my mind is like blown right now that you just connected those guys, the Game of Thrones guys, with this, because they were supposed to announce everything that's happening with this at New York Comic Con, and these guys quit at the end of October. So if I was in Lucasfilm and I knew this was going to happen, I would tell them not to announce anything at New York Comic Con. Because by the way, I went, viewers at home, if you see me looking at my phone, I was looking up to see what the actual quote was, and it's the origins of the Jedi and how they came to be. So that could play into this story. Yeah, that could play into the storyline, though, if they're just getting started out. Like, that's a big, broad statement, right? But it's just very weird. And then I'm hearing from, people that were at the event that heard from the executives that said they were going to announce it in October and then decided not to because they thought they would lose attention. That to me says something happened, so we got delayed. And this just all adds up that if this happened in October, if this, you're about to announce something and then someone goes, hey, by the way, you need to not announce this because stuff's happening behind the scenes. You need to hold off. Because I don't know if you remember, John, when we were there, that hype was about what Project Luminous was.
Well, everyone
were
thought,
so hyped.
Everyone thought Star Wars Explained. Everyone thought they were going to announce it that
yes. And we were all waiting in line for like 45 minutes before the panel opened for a book panel because we were like, what does this mean?
Yes.
We get there, they get through everything and we're waiting for it and we're waiting for it and we're waiting for it. And then they get to the end and they're like, well, we can't talk about it, so
I think they said
it's a thing.
I think the only thing they added was that like Marvel's involved with it or something like that.
And IDW's involved.
Yeah.
But remember all the actors, like Charles Soule even kind of seemed like, I wish I could talk about it.
Yeah, 100%.
And he seemed kind of a little annoyed, which I would be annoyed if I put all this work into something and then they're like, you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Something you said there is just clicking to me that it just makes sense in the timeline of their quitting. And then this was supposed to be announced. And then I'm hearing from people at the event that execs said they were going to announce in October and then gave some like blah, blah, blah PR answer. That to me says that this probably was all tied together. This was probably some grand plan that the books were going to tie to the movies and then this was going to tie to this. And then it all fell apart and they went, well, we can't stop with these books.
Exactly.
Because all these authors are already hired. We've already paid them. We're already in the process.
Oh, they're
and,
well
by
underway.
the way,
First
to your
drafts are
defense,
done.
James. Yeah, James. These are probably amazing stories that are ready to take us into the next era. They're not going to stop that because this fell through. They're going to keep plugging away and moving forward. That, to me, explains why all the hype was there, and then we ended up getting what we got.
What followers are you guys? There was zero hype for this thing. Like for the longest time, this was it's probably from a certain point of view of Empire Strikes Back. That was for like a year or more. That's what anybody talked about. I don't want to talk about the hype, though. I want to talk about what it is.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can talk about what it is. I think what Lacey's saying, like, there was a lot of teasing. There would be like Project Luminous coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Look, I'm one that talks very big of the books. I think that the books and all this stuff is important, but it's really surprising to me that you guys know that like Claudia Gray and Cavan Scott and Daniel Jose Older and stuff are the people who are involved in this, and you guys think this is this huge thing, and there was all this hype about the future of Star Wars. I feel like it was very clear this was like, oh, it's going to be more than one book. It's probably just going to be like a bunch of books that all kind of center around the same idea.
Unless then you're not buying into the idea that there was supposed to be some sort of connectivity with what Benny F and Wise were doing. But anyway, you want to talk about,
because I don't think the hype was there. If that was real, I mean, and it might have been a big surprise.
That's
but
fine.
I think if that was real, they actually legitimately would have been like rolling GMA ads. Like Disney today announced the future of Star Wars.
Well, all we can do now is talk about what exists now. The Benny F and Wise guys are gone. There's no talk about connectivity. So impact on what this batch of storytelling is going to have on the future of Star Wars. So, James, do you think them calling this a phase one, is that them covering themselves in terms of like, oh, we're going to have, don't worry, there's more coming to this? Where do you see this impacting Star Wars? Are you looking at other media? Are you looking at animated shows in the future? Where's your mind at with this stuff?
I am looking at animated. I'm looking at video games as well. I think that at the end of the day, they could even cultivate something that would be like, oh, well, we never brought it to film or we never brought it to live action. But at the end of the day, people still really love the Rebels era, you know, or the Mandalorian era. Those are bad examples because there's live action things in those things. I really think that if you are right that their plans were that they were going to evolve a movie, I think ultimately what they want to do with this era is they wanted to create it and cultivate it and have someone like J.J. Abrams was not involved in the production of the original Star Wars, but he looked at the world that was there and the stories that had been told, and he created a movie based in that world. I think that they could cultivate, that their plans are to cultivate a certain era of time that says, hey, we were thinking about doing a new movie. What do you think? Would you be interested in this time era? And if someone is like, yeah, I love all that stuff resonates with me, then they're like, well, you might be the filmmaker for us. But again, I like the idea of these stories completely separate. And it's kind of comes back to Neil's question is I don't think this is something that the bigger world needs to pay attention to. The bigger Star Wars fandom, I don't think they need to pay attention to it. But if they do pay attention to it and it does get a big payoff, then anybody who's been following it is going to be happily ahead of the game.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, well, where were you in 2020 when they announced all this stuff?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. My thing, I guess, is they're clearly, and as you imagine they always would, pitching this as this is the future of Star Wars, you know. Like I said, what that rep from, I don't want to call her a rep. I don't know what her title was. The person from the Disney Lucasfilm Press who made that speech at the beginning about how books were carried forever during the dark times or whatever. They're pitching it as this. And, you know, I think you're agreeing, your general Star Wars fan who buys your movie tickets and maybe even sees The Mandalorian isn't even anywhere sniffing what this thing is. It's just not on their radar. So it's hard for me to buy that sell, but I do agree with you. If they do start branching out and they make a cool video game of these, and you could really visualize, like tangibly visualize these roundtable Jedi Knights fighting these crazy Vikings, and you have this insane creatures, and you're entering all these new things in Star Wars. I think that's very enticing to people, especially if you model it around similar things in a game, you know, video game world that people are used to, or an animated series. Like an animated series in this type of era could be very dynamic if you get the right animators and storytellers. So, I'm with you on that. If they expand it to other media, that's how you can expand your audience. If you keep it literature, you're always going to have a tight bubble. As great as the storytelling may be, like I'm already eyeing 2 of these books, or at least one, the Marvel comic and 1 or 2 of the books, and I'm in. I may audiobook it, you know, because I can't always sit down and read a book. I got to drive around sometimes, and that's where I get my time alone. But I'm on board with that stuff. I don't know, Lacey, where are you at with that in terms of its impact? Do they need to expand beyond the books, or do you think they can draw people in?
I think they definitely have to expand outside of the books. Because if they were making tons of money and getting tons of views from books, then they would only be doing books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they would be focusing more on books than anything else. And that's not to downplay the books, because the books are great. But I think that the thing I'm most excited for is the Charles Soule book, because it looks like the books that I grew up reading for Star Wars when I was little, after I couldn't see another Star Wars movie. Like, in between the time that I saw the first Star Wars movies and then the prequels came out, I went to the books, which is, I believe, what that lady was trying to say. But even then, it wasn't a movie. It wasn't seeing it happen. But the exciting thing about this time frame is that we could just get a brand new, sweeping, epic sci-fi fantasy that we all want. So that's what's exciting to me, is that I'm ready for something new in Star Wars.
Sure. I agree. James, do you have one of these stories that you're most excited about? Like, I know you and I have talked endlessly about, you know, the Jedi and not liking this whole, you need the light and the dark. This Charles Soule book seems like it's pure, you know, good side Jedi stuff. Is that your draw? Like, where's your draw out of these stories that you're most fired up on?
I don't know that there is a particular book. If I had to say one, it would probably be the Charles Soule, just because it's the kickoff and it will probably set the precedent. But I think what's really interesting in this, I know we've kind of taken a turn down like the hype train, but I had a bunch of stuff written down as far as like, how do the Sith play into this? Because they're out there, but they're not doing things, you know? How does the dark side fit into this? Because there will always be dark. So what is the dark side in this thing? Because they even specifically use the phrase, a frightening new adversary. And we're well aware that they're like people like the Night Sisters. They're not Sith, but they're definitely the dark side. And there's a cool new thing that I think they want to do that is very, because the Jedi are the main adversaries, it's not like the Chiss versus the Griss, you know? That's a frightening new adversary that feels like it's humans fighting humans, or it's not. It's aliens and aliens, but this is the Jedi versus the dark side, but the dark side is not the Sith.
Sure.
And what is that entity that is a frightening new adversary to threaten the High Republic at this time frame, to create the great, what was the word that he used? Great disaster or something?
Cataclysm?
Yeah, something along those lines. That's going to cause something that ruptures their infrastructure so heavily that the question was, what are the Jedi afraid of? You know? I love this idea of the Jedi being the 20% of the galaxy and then the 80% overtaking them or standing up and them needing to push back against that. It's almost as if the Jedi are the new rebels fighting against the new empire.
That's an interesting angle, because you know what it made me think about? Like, in the prequels, like, is when they start admitting like the people aren't trusting the Jedi anymore, and you have to figure in this era the Jedi have the full faith of the galaxy, or at least people within on board with said Republic. So that'll be a different take, because even during the prequels, like the Phantom Menace, there was still unease about what the Jedi were doing. So this will be our real first look at everyone fully believing the Jedi are the good guys and doing the right thing, I guess, right? Not to go against what you're saying.
Wait. Say that again. Sorry.
To fully believing that and fully trusting that they have their best interests in mind, and the Jedi aren't power hungry or anything like that. That they are these genuine guardians and not trying to take rule themselves, which is what Palpatine tried to plant seeds in with the people within the Republic. So it's gonna be more of the Jedi are the good guys, and everyone's kind of on board with that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see even too, like what section of the galaxy is the High Republic in, because we look at all these other worlds that we might recognize, like Coruscant, for instance. Coruscant might not be part of the High Republic. It may be in the Coruscant at the time might be the center of these outskirts, wild west, where the High Republic does not touch, you know what I mean? So all these planets that we've recognized, just like even the core worlds, you know, it's just such a huge shift change, I think, and it's so exciting and fun. I get really excited about it. I just I don't know about the whole film thing. I don't know either. I
mean, Lacey, you brought it up Monday that, you know, it is the time of peace or whatever. And yeah, there is going to be this cataclysmic event that causes this chaos with all these crazy Viking warlord, whatever you want to call them, people. But I think you were kind of saying like what I just mentioned about how the Jedi are going to kind of be at their peak, and it is going to be a peacetime. But a lot of that is probably the fact that they're going to have the faith of the people. And that's usually... not to bring politics back into Star Wars, but the prequels definitely weighed heavily more on that than like the original trilogy or sequel trilogy. Do you think it's going to be more prequel vibey because of that? Like, in other words, like, do the people trust the Jedi? They do more now this era?
I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not a gigantic prequel fan, so my immediate fear is that it gets too much into that politics stuff, like going into the Thrawn books where they're sitting around a table talking about like war plans. Like, that's not interesting to me.
Yeah,
I want
hear
the
you.
ragtag group that's going on an adventure to solve some problem. Like, that's the Star Wars that I like to read, and that might not be for everybody, and that's fine, but the moment that we get into this is how the government's running and this is how this planet is running this empire and stuff like I just tune out. Like,
Yeah.
Real life sucks enough. Like, just put me on a spaceship and send me somewhere because I don't want to talk about political stuff.
Put me on the spaceship. I'm with you. It makes me think like the Justina Ireland book, which I'd said interests me just based on that cover, A Test of Courage. It kind of shows, it gives that ragtag vibe. You have these two Jedi and these two like kids and a droid. Maybe because
What's the age group for that book though?
I think it's
Isn't it an early reader?
Oh, I don't know. It could be. It looks very cartoony.
Yeah, it's like Spark of Resistance and Pirates Place and the Lando book and stuff. Yeah, I think it's
which
of that
Claudia
age group.
Gray's is like YA, right?
Above that, yeah.
I feel like Claudia Gray's might
New
be
adult,
Yeah, like Lost Starsy kind of. But
which is new adult. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, my concern about this type of era is if it's all Jedi as your main characters, there's a lot of stuffiness there because you don't have your Han Solos and your more regular blue collar type of Star Wars characters that bring the humor. I feel like the prequels lacked heavily in humor, and maybe they're trying to learn from that mistake by interjecting more of these weird, quirky characters in these books.
Right.
Because the Jedi are just not funny. And, you know, they tried to make Anakin and Obi-Wan funnier in the Clone Wars, but I thought it was a little weird. But maybe they're trying to interject new characters, and maybe that's why there's a Wookiee Jedi. I don't know, but...
right.
Well, once they give us more information, because even Charles Soule today is like, I can't really tell you anything. It's like, we can't really talk too much about it, but I'm on board. I think it's interesting, and I'm curious where it expands from here. And obviously, we're gonna talk more about it.
One other quick thing too that I was thinking of is I think a good likening to this announcement is similar to when they were opening up Galaxy's Edge. And there was this big wave of books that were like, oh, the Galaxy's Edge comic, the Galaxy's Edge YA, the Galaxy's Edge, novel with, it was a follow-up to Phasma and all this stuff. And it all had to do with, and somehow all of it was connecting. And you could then go to the park and you'll be able to see, like one of the characters that walks around is Vi Marati. It's like, oh, that's from these Galaxy's Edge books. And the whole reason we're here is because of her. And all this stuff, and it all ties in a very big way to Star Wars. But is it really big? Like, I have speculated before that they were going to launch off of Galaxy's Edge. Like, what if it's in Rise of Skywalker? Wouldn't that be great? But I don't think, especially at this point, I don't think they're looking to start a new era, out of Galaxy's Edge and all the books that were involved in that project. That's, I think maybe a little bit of like, I learned from that. And like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, hey, we're launching a new era of books and they're all going to revolve around these characters and these things. And there's going to be YA novels and comics and stuff. And I go, oh, okay. Yeah. So it's going to be really cool for a certain era. But like, I was never really under the impression that it was a bigger thing. But I'm excited about it because I think this is way cooler than the Galaxy's Edge world.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
With like Doc Ondar going on missions, and
I feel like those were commercials for a theme park.
Well, I like all those things. I'm definitely involved in it. And I think they're good. Yeah. I had a hard time at that time. We were doing book discussions and stuff, and there was a couple times I was like, this feels like... I don't know if anybody watches that. There's one book where they were literally like, she's like, where do you get water? And they're like, oh, you can get water from the fountains. They're over by the bathrooms or something like that. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
Right next to the
that
Coke
takes
machine.
me out of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty blatant in sometimes. So I had a hard time arguing the commercial aspect of it, but I like this. I like this High Republic thing. I think it's free from all that. It's just an area. It's a sandbox. Yeah.
Last thing to close this thing out. Do you guys think Yoda appears in any of these books?
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason that's a hard question is because it's phase 1.
Okay.
But Yoda is absolutely, no doubt, a part of the High Republic. He's involved.
I think he's
100%.
I think he's in Charles Soule's book. I think they're gonna get him
I
in
think
there.
it's leading up to Yoda, and that's why it's called Project Luminous.
Leading up to him, so you think he'll come
Like
later?
him showing up.
See, my only thing with because he said he's been training Jedi since he was 100, and he's supposed to be like 650 here. So he's got 5 centuries of training Jedi, so he's got to be here somewhere around here, right? And the only reason
Also,
why
there from the video, like the Reddit fans
concept
went
thing,
in,
yeah,
and then you can see a little thing with some hair and stuff. Yeah.
I almost think they want to throw him right at the beginning, so people are like, oh, Yoda's in that book. Oh, maybe I will check these things out, but who knows? But
So is Yaddle, though, right?
you got
presumably
you got to bring her back. She's a hot character. You got to.
She would be
back.
roughly
Yeah.
around the same age. There's another character. I think Tara Sinube is older than 200. I could be wrong.
Maz Kanata. Let's go, right?
Maz Kanata could
Running a
easily
bar
be
somewhere.
a part of this.
Yeah, she's had it for a long time. Maybe it's the same place. It'd be cool to see those Jedi pop in that place. But I mean, we'll talk about this a lot more as more details come out. Obviously, we're up against time here. So you guys good to move on for now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's hop it over so we can hear from you guys and check out what you had to tweet in Resistance Transmissions. Lacey, what is going on this week?
Hey guys, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So how this works is every week, John puts up a crazy, wacky situation on Twitter. And you guys give your answers. And the most creative, interesting, funny, depressing, whatever, just over-the-top answers get pulled. So I've never read these. I don't know what the situation is. Just word to the wise for future reference. Don't tag me in these because I don't want to see them. So sometimes people do and I get it, but like, just try not to. All right. That being said, the situation is behind the scenes of Revenge of the Sith. What is Ian McDiarmid, the actor, not Palpatine, thinking here? And it's a picture of George, who's looking at some type of probably scene list or something, some type of production
Script,
note.
shot list, yeah.
Yep. And Kenobi and Anakin are looking at the sheet with him, which is Hayden and Ewan McGregor. And then over in the corner, like photobombing it, is Ian McDiarmid. Just staring at the camera. Yeah. It's out of focus, but yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it focused, but it won't happen.
All right. So the first answer comes from Carrie Thornhill at Carrie Thornhill 1. And Carrie said, can't wait to come back in a little over a decade just to look even more like a melted candle. Aw. That's his real face. Carrie.
Oh,
All right.
boy.
Next
Melted candle.
is Nicholas Kratz. And he said, the Senate grows impatient.
Way to get your handle, Nicholas. Well done.
Yeah.
Next up is Andrew Staley at Deuce_Staley. And Andrew said, I think I'll mass market this robe as a blanket with sleeves you can wear whilst lounging. I'll call them sheevies. No, wait, snuggies. Good.
Oh, man.
Not a bad idea.
I thought that was going a different direction. I thought he was going to go with sleeve Palpatine.
Good job, man.
Next up is Dottie Cat at Libra_Maxwell. And Dottie said, I guess no one is going to ask me what I want from Panera.
It's good.
Next up is Jason at Jivjov. And Jason said, I really wish I could be like hoisted on a big crane instead of having to walk everywhere. Next up is another Jason, Jason M at Jason Mitz. And Jason said, yep, we're all here in costume, on time, crew is ready. And George wants to share his recipe for his world famous potato salad.
Gosh.
I love it.
I would love to have George's world famous potato salad.
Yeah, that'd probably be really
That'd
good.
be awesome.
Yeah.
Next is Jim Corbett at jcorb3tt83. And he said, Hayden, I saw your browser history.
There it is. Genghis Dingus.
Oh, jeez. Next
How
is
to
Chris.
save your loved ones from dying.
Yeah.
Next is Chris Brettel at Chris Brettel.
Hey, Chris.
And Chris said, long have I waited.
That's awesome. And way to get your handle, Chris.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. And then last but not least is Aaron Saboda at Aaron Saboda. Oh my God. And he wrote, now this is crop dusting. God. Unreal. You guys. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. John is dying. And you could be on the show. Back to you, John.
I love fart jokes. I'm sorry.
Apparently.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for watching, listening, being a part of the Resistance. Hope you enjoyed our conversation about the High Republic. Obviously, just scratching the surface. We could have gone on for a while, but we did go on for a while. But I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a longer episode here. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcasts, and share it with a friend. If you have one friend, two friends that like Star Wars, they may not know about Star Wars podcasts, so share us with them, and we really appreciate your help there. Go to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for your latest Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. As you heard earlier, we had one of our patrons, General Neil, on the podcast, but that's tier 5. We have 5 tiers. So what we want you to do is head over to patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. Check out the 5 tiers. You can be a major, a lieutenant, a commander, an admiral, or a general. See which one works for you. Each one has different benefits, but the first tier gets you into the base at all times to access all the content on that page. So check it out. If you see something you like, a tier you dig, want to sign up and support us, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I want to thank our Patreon generals. Just mentioned Neil Lowry right there, but we also have Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Seth Keim, Micah Harrison, Tampa Movie Guy, Michael Gaines, the DeLorean owner, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. You are the absolute best. As you know, tpublic.com.
Not Nemorian.
Who?
It's terrible.
Oh.
I said
Not
the DeLorean
Nemorian.
owner. I said not Nemorian.
That's actually not bad, James, even this late in the night for us.
Yeah.
tpublic.com for our t-shirts. Just look up Resistance Broadcast. I Am All the Jedi is available there, as well as Make Solo 2 Happen and all that good stuff. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and StarWarsNewsNet.com. James?
Twitter and Instagram at Meyer Trunks.
Lacey?
Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right. That will do it from us here in the base. We hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And as always, we'll see you on Monday morning with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.